Hello everyone, we're in Pirkei Avot, third parak, Mishnah 2. And the way we're actually going to do this is the Maharal splits one Mishnah into two different Mishnayot, but instead of tracking that, it seems like most other versions keep Mishnah 2 as kind of a much longer Mishnah, so we're just going to split it up into at least two, probably only two, so this will be part 1. So here we go. Rabbi Chanina Sgan HaKohanim Omer. Rabbi Chanina, the vice high priest, said, so have a mitpalel l'shlomas shel malchut, pray for the welfare of the government, she'il malemo ha'ah, were it not for the fear it inspires, ish et re'ehu achayim bla'o, every man would swallow his neighbor alive. Well, so we'll need to unpack this very interesting statement. But at the very beginning, let's just at least cover Rashi and Yona. And they say something very beautiful, and they say, this Mishnah tells us that we should really pray not only for our own well-being, and not only even the Jewish people's well-being, but even the welfare of the entire world. Right? Rabbi Yona elaborates and says, with peaceful governments, there is peace in the world. If you have governments who are looking to quarrel with other people, and there's going to be trouble. When there are governments there, and they want peace, then things proceed smoothly. So we should pray for that. We should pray for the welfare, and that it will carry over to the entire world. Another idea, we'll share 3. So idea number 2, I heard this from Rav Wagshal. I actually heard this from a friend, Ezra, but then I asked Rav Wagshal about it for a little bit of elaboration. And he asks something very interesting. He says, Derech Chaim, a person, they'll eat people alive, they'll swallow people alive. I mean, my gosh, first, what does that mean? It's like people aren't cannibals. So Rav Wagshal says, this is actually speaking in metaphor. If we could just imagine a person eating someone while they're still alive, just imagine this guy, and this is the image apparently he literally spoke out and said. So we're not just trying to be, overly visual, but if you're just chomping down on a guy's arm or on his leg, and he's just sort of screaming this, you're eating him alive. It's not a pleasant image. What's happening is that the horror isn't only that you're eating the person alive, it's that you're completely ignoring the person's screams. That's what it means. That without the government, people will eat each other alive, they'll swallow each other alive. That is, they'll completely ignore the screams of others. They just won't care. And I asked him, the question to him was, people see, even with the government, people still seem to do it. So he said, yes, it's true, but without the government, things would be worse. And the truth is, we think about this, and we think, what happens when, say, again, just taking an example, I'm not trying to get into a whole political, commercial discussion, but when we hear of companies, there are regulations in place, there are laws in place, how employers are supposed to treat their employees. When those employers know that they can violate the law and kind of treat their employees like dirt, and there's no real government enforcement, there's no enforcement of the regulations, there's no enforcement of the laws, you just see how quickly things slide. It's kind of shocking, and I think this is part of what it's speaking about. It's not just about employers might mistreat workers might take advantage of employers. When we know that there's going to be no government intervention to kind of stop that, we just see how bad things can get. And that's part of what this mission is teaching us, according to Rav Wagshal. I think that's a beautiful, powerful idea. Now on to idea number 3. So this is the Maharal in Derech Chaim. Right? We've learned this before. And Maharal opens with 2 questions. He says, what does this have to do with the previous Maimar? Right? In terms of this is Mishnah 2. Mishnah 1 spoke about how a person should think of where he comes from, where he's going to, what his purpose in life is. He comes from a lowly place. He's going to a lowly place. He has to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What's the connection between that and this? A person will swallow. They'll swallow other people alive without the government. How does A lead to B? How does that go? So that's 1. And then 2 is, while it's certainly worthy to pray for the welfare of the government, Maharal completely concedes that. That's easy. But why swallow each other alive? Again, that's such a vivid image. Why not just say, people would not be able to exist? If it weren't for the government, then people would just not be able to stand. So he answers like this. He answers actually a fairly elaborate answer. He gives a fairly large intro, and he talks about how people are created singular. That we mean when we look at Masa Bereshit, we see that the animals and other creations, they're all created in multitudes, as opposed to Adam, right? Adam, man, capital M, man, was created singular. Even though Adam was later split into male and female, that first entity was single. And so why? So it's a fairly famous idea that a person must understand. Bishvili nivra ha'olam, the world was created for me. There's indescribable. It is impossible to state the value of a human life, and that's part of the reason why God created man alone. But, and here's where things can get dark. So we see, like a king unites disparate entities into a whole, right? It could be separate lords brought into one, different fiefdoms, different counties, however you want to do it. The king unites all of them under a single monarch, right? Now, that is a wonderful idea. We have a king uniting everyone. And when we have that, and we have that same idea of Bishvili Nivra Olam, with this focus on the individual, then there's this beautiful kind of this beautiful co-play in terms of, on the one hand, everyone's united under one banner, but on the other hand, we understand the value of the individual. And so we see that when the needs of the society require the individual hopefully sacrifice themselves, but they'll never sacrifice themselves enough to think that the society can literally just steamroll over individuals. That's not the point. Each one has its own value. But, and here's the important but, and this is where things get dark, if there is no king, and this mantra still holds true, Bishvili Nivra Olam, the world was created for me, we have a problem because person A is going to see person B, and person A is thinking, well, the world was created for me. So they'll just devour person B if that person gets in their way, if it's valuable for them, if it will benefit person A, because what's person B? Person A is thinking, the world was created for me. I'm literally the center of the universe. And so we see just how dangerous that can become. And that's why we need Malchut. We need Malchut, the government, because otherwise people will literally consume other people. They'll just devour them. And again, like Mas Mecholion, we literally see this happen on a regular basis. That's actually Maharal's second answer. His first answer, and this is how he connects it to the very first Mishnah, which was his first question. This is the reason why this Mishnah follows Mishnah 1 is, again, very, very straightforward. Mishnah 1 talks about how a person comes from a lowly place. When a person focuses on how they come from a lowly place, they're much less likely to become arrogant. A person who's arrogant, and people I think are naturally arrogant, they think, oh, what about me? Especially Bishvili Nivra Olam. But because of that natural haughtiness, they'll look at other people as lesser. They're kind of like, these people are the stepping stones to my success. And that's how, that is what their perspective will be about other people. When a person has Mishnah 1 in mind, I come from a putrid trop, I'm going to go back to a place of worms and maggots, then with that kind of mentality, hopefully, a person should be able to internalize that other people are not simply their stepping stones. And in that way, Mishnah B follows naturally from Mishnah A. We'll leave it over there, and we'll see you next time.